in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to day 70 of 90 in the Broken to Beautifully Blended's 90-day video challenge, stepping into 2020 on the right foot.
Ding, 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 ding.
I so stole that from you.
You did. You did a great job. Even though you had to think about it right in the middle.
I did, but it's okay.
You did. You got it all the way.
You did a countdown of 10 to 1.
Nice job. That's my wife. She's making things happen. So,
come on.
70 days.
Yeah. 10 weeks.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
A lot of time.
It is a lot of time. There's been so much that's happened in the last 70 days. The sun has risen and set 70 times.
It has. Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good thing.
When did we start this? October 2nd?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like forever ago.
Yeah. From down on the couch.
I know. We've done the couch and moved in here and we got this fancy green screen.
Yeah.
We're big time.
Hopefully I'm not blending in with the green screen today.
No, you'll be fine.
Good. We've done from across the United States.
Mm-hmm. Did homecoming?
Mm-hmm.
We should do more outside stuff like that.
We really should.
But it's cold.
And you have to do it before the sun goes down, really, kind of.
Well, we didn't own homecoming, but
if there was such bright lights.
Yeah, but they have street lights.
Maybe.
We'll figure out something. But, yeah, 70 days. Today's also day 32 on the 40-day prayer challenge. We're getting down to the end, the nitty-gritty. Today, we talked about get a testimony. And the verse for today, Revelation 12:11, and inside the ellipses is, and by the word of their testimony. So basically what we're talking about today is what is God doing in your life right now? Mm-hmm. Not 10 years ago, not 25 years ago, right now. What is he doing? Mark talks about since the release of Circle Maker, he's had so many testimonies come in. He says there's not hardly a day goes by that I don't hear a story that makes me want to cry or give God a round of applause. Those testimonies have lit a fire under my faith like anything I've ever experienced. Here's why. If God did it for them, he might just do it for me. Maybe that's why Revelation 12:11 places such importance on sharing testimonies, and maybe that's why the enemy wants us to keep our testimonies silent.
I think it's interesting, too, that this morning as I finished reading this and I finished my quiet time and I went to the YouTube channel to post last night's video to get everything going on that, one of the first things that popped up was a video that is against remarriage. And so I thought, that is our testimony. Our testimony is set out for us before we ever realized what was going on. Just like you said before, God named our family. And we, without a doubt, know that this is what God intended for us because there has been a testimony to go along with it. And so if you guys haven't stopped and went over and looked at the Life Church, which I'm sure Rockford can link that below, the Life Church and four-part video series on blended families. The second one is our testimony, and that is our testimony. We continue to build on that testimony as we continue to do this and to give encouragement to blended families that, we're all sinners and nobody gets to say, hey, I'm better than you because I don't sin like you sin. So I think that was very fitting that was this morning, that it was just finishing that up and okay, there's, one more reason why I should be silent. The devil says I should be silent.
And we're doing what we do with this channel, with our lives and the things that we're trying to live out, is live out what God's called us to do. And it's not easy. There are times when your testimony can be hard, when it's hard to share, it's hard to talk about, it's hard to live out.
Mm-hmm.
There are times when we argue and it's hard to live it out. It's hard to end those arguments without freaking out, without it being a bigger deal than it needs to be. So I like what he said. He says, if God did it for them, he might just do it for me. I'm reminded of the story in the Old Testament when King Saul's son, Jonathan, who was a friend of David, was out with King Saul fighting against what was Goliath?
The Philistines?
Philistines.
Yeah.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. They were fighting against the Philistines. And so Jonathan says to his armor bearer, come on, let's go attack the camp, the enemy camp, the Philistine camp by ourselves. He says, God can deliver us, and perhaps he will. And I thought, I heard that, I don't know, it's probably been 3 or 4 years ago now. And that's stuck with me ever since, that God can do it for anyone and for any reason, and perhaps he'll do it for us. And Jonathan's armor bearer went with Jonathan. They climbed up the hill. They had their plan, and they overran that Philistine outpost, just the two of them. Mm-hmm. And he did it on a perhaps. So what should we be doing? What should you be doing on a perhaps? Anyway, that's one of my favorite. I know that he can, and perhaps he will. He goes on to talk about hearsay. In the world of criminal law and academic research, we see a big difference between first-person and second-person testimony. A first-person witness is more credible because they actually saw what happened with their own eyes. A second-person testimony is hearsay. Doesn't mean it's not true, it just means it doesn't hold as much weight. And he goes on to talk about the difference between first-person and second-person testimonies. And he did say in here that he believes our churches today are filled with hearsay. What we need are witnesses with first-person testimonies. And I think about that, and there's a lot of truth in that. We oftentimes, when we attend a church, we are excited, as well we should be. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be. As well we should be when God does something in somebody else's life. But the issue comes whenever we go, you know what, that's what God did for them. And you know what, I'm just different. God's not doing that for me. We know that he can, and perhaps he will. So it's up to us to continue to live out and to seek and to find what God's testimony is for our life, so that we are first-person witnesses to what he's doing.
In churches, too, it's very easy to just go and not truly engage. And so it can be messy. Testimonies are messy. And they're starts with testimonies. So whenever you are there and somebody is giving their testimony, it can be awkward. It can be like, this is too much for me. And somebody that has a first person testimony, they're usually enthusiastic. And your mom always says, what about enthusiastic? What's enthusiastic mean?
I don't know.
Enthusiastic, the root of it is entheos, of God. So it is on fire for God. And so you are enthusiastic, and it can be messy. And as you're there and you're like, well, he's never done that for me. Do I want him to do that for me? And I think that once you have those first person testimonies, then you're just like, oh my gosh, this was amazing. And I want other people to have this. So like we talked about yesterday, you've got to start to have some discernment, and with maturity in your faith, you'll start to know when to share and when to just listen, when to see, okay, what am I supposed to learn now? Because it's about the Holy Spirit. And in here, that was one of the things that you had skipped over that I thought, oh man, it's a stewardship issue. If we don't turn the answer to prayers into praise, it may very well turn into pride. Giving testimony is the way to give God all the glory. And it's about God. And so whenever you start finding, this is what he did for me, then you can start, this is how good God is. This is what God has done. And that's how he gets the glory.
It says nothing can compare to the power of a first person testimony. The most educated and erudite, I don't even know what that word means. Second person testimony still can't compare with a first person witness. So go ahead and get an education. Study to present yourself to God as one approved, but please don't just get an education. Get a testimony. Mm-hmm. So, again, when you're talking, when you're sharing about what God has done, it's one thing to say, man, God healed my neighbor. It's another thing to say, God saved my marriage. It's one thing to say, God provided a way for my friend. It's another thing to say that God saved me from the clutches of pornography or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. There's a whole lot of difference in what God has done for you, what God is doing through you, rather than what God has done for so-and-so down the street. Not that that's not important. Again, It is important, but your testimony carries weight. And your testimony, again, is what God's doing right now. So many times in churches when we say, hey, tell us your testimony, we talk about what God did when we were saved. And that is the crucial moment in our life whenever God knocked on the door and we let him in. But that's not our testimony. That is part of our testimony. And if the only thing that God did was knock on the door 20 years ago, and there's no evidence of that in your life today, then you might want to have a serious conversation about what it is that you really believe. Testimonies should be continually growing, continually evolving, continually being renewed by the things that God's called you to do.
Continually stretching you.
Part of that, he talks in here about some crazy prayers. Talks about his pastor friend, Mike Minter. He's a founding pastor of Reston Bible Church. What's interesting is he has, this guy Mike has a missionary friend named Jamie Winship. His mission field is the Muslim world. He spends a lot of time over in Baghdad, Iraq, and he says knows the Quran backward and forward. He says Jamie is one of those guys who prays crazy prayers and then crazy stuff happens. Divine appointments happen right and left. He'll be praying for a particular imam, and then imam will just happen to be on the same plane, going to the same place, or in the same restaurant at the table right behind him. So this story goes along that Mike, the pastor, was going to have breakfast with Jamie, the missionary, and they were standing in line at Panera, apparently, and they recognized, or there was a Muslim woman standing in front of them. Full headgear, all you could see was her eyes, and Jamie, the missionary, says, I know you. And so they have this conversation, and this is someone that Jamie, the missionary, had been praying for and just so happened to be in Panera in Washington, D.C., right behind her in line. And that story turned out to be a life-changing moment for all of those people involved, whether it was Mike, the pastor, Jamie, the missionary, or the Muslim woman. But it's interesting that as we get more in tune with our prayer life, when we speak specifically about things we want, when we speak directly about the things that we believe that God is calling us to, how he will orchestrate things together in order to fulfill his call. Mm-hmm. So
he wraps it up very nicely there.
Well, what's it say?
says you need a story of your own. It's got to have your name on it. You've got to see it, hear it, taste it, feel it, touch it, and smell it for yourself. You need to get a testimony. Then you need to share it.
Mm. And the thought for the day, which I think is very succinct and very true, most of us are educated way beyond the level of our obedience. A lot of people that I know have grown up in church. They've spent the majority of their life in church. They know all the stories, but they're educated way beyond the level of their obedience. I think I'm educated beyond the level of my obedience. There are so many things that I should be doing.
And by educated beyond our obedience, it is you get so much head knowledge that you forget that it's about the heart knowledge. Mm-hmm. And that you are so worried about it can't be that easy. It can't be that I pray for something and I pray for God's will and then he reveals something. It just can't be that easy. There's got to be more to it. And so it's just like anything else that we think this is just too good to be true. Mm. And it's not.
God will reveal things to us when we take the time to actually speak with him, to say what's on our heart, to say what's on our mind, to be clear about it, not vague, mm-hmm. right? I mean, we've talked about that.
Be bold.
And when we're bold and we are honest and we say, God, I really don't understand anything about what's happening right now. I don't see the way out. What's next? And like we talked about, it's been several weeks ago now, God doesn't show you the whole picture. He either shows you the mountaintop and not the path, or he shows you the valley and not the mountaintop. So you got to be willing to work off of either one. Mm-hmm. Like the church is doing for 2020. Are you available? Are you available to do what God's called you to do? So.
I'm available.
Are you?
Are you available?
Yeah, I am. It terrifies me at times.
Yeah.
So.
Are you available?
Putting you on the spot, YouTube. So.
Oh, YouTube.
All right. That's pretty heavy stuff for today. Go out, share what God's doing in your life. Don't be afraid. Don't hold back. Share with others what God is doing through you, for you, in you.
If it makes you excited, if you're excited what he's doing in your life and you know that he wants you to give him the glory and to share it, and then he does more things in your life, why would you not share?
I agree.
Okay.
Okay. Tomorrow, day 71.
Day 33 in here.
So day 33 in this one? That's right. Yeah. We're getting to the point where we're at the back of the book now. Raise up a remnant.
Nope, that's 34.
Huh?
That's 34.
Oh, I don't know how to read. Day 33, prayer covering.
Yep.
Prayer covering. We're going to cover something?
Mm-hmm.
Like lay a blanket on top of it kind of thing?
Maybe. Got to read it tomorrow.
Got to figure out what prayer covering is tomorrow. All right. You know what to do. You can smash that subscribe button. We talked about that yesterday. Smash it. Or just click it.
And then click the bell to get notifications.
Leave us a comment. Jump over to Facebook, like the Facebook page. We're looking for comments. We're looking for feedback from what you guys think. I know people are watching these videos. I see the counters, so I know you're watching. I'm looking for some comments. You guys have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow on day 71.